It's big, it's bustling, it has skyscrapers, and the tallest structure in North America. People from all over the world go there to study, to start businesses, and to seek refuge. While it's not the capital, it is the country's biggest city and its financial center. I'm not talking about New York. I'm talking about Toronto, the biggest city in Canada.
Welcome to Plain English, the podcast that goes at the right speed for English language learners. Listen now and read the transcript online at plainenglish.com. Now, here's Jeff, your host for today's episode.
Welcome back to Plain English. It's great to have you with us once more. I'm Jeff. The producer is JR. Our email addresses, if you'd like to get in touch with us, are Jeff, Jeff, at plainenglish.com and JR at plainenglish.com. Today is episode number 124, and we are going to do something a little bit different today. I thought that every so often, certainly not every week, but every now and then, we might talk about a place in the English-speaking world. You're learning English, so I thought you might also want to know a little more about some of the places around the world that speak English. So today will be the first in an occasional series on destinations in the English-speaking world. And we'll start by talking about Toronto. I picked Toronto because I traveled there a lot from October to December last year. So I had a chance to get to know the city, and I wanted to share a little bit about it with all of you. This may be a new type of episode, but some things never change here at Plain English. As always, the transcripts are available on the website. And like I said, this is episode 124. So that means you can find the transcript at plainenglish.com/124. We also have our translations from English to Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, Japanese, Chinese, and French. All of that at plainenglish.com/124. Toronto is a big city. Big buildings, professional sports, museums, a big lake. It's situated on Lake Ontario, one of the Great Lakes that sit between the US and Canada. One of the things I love about big cities in Europe and the United States is that big cities have people from all over the world. In fact, of all the places I've been to, Toronto probably ranks third in terms of having people from all across the globe. I would say London and New York are tied for the top two, but Toronto is a close third. Whereas in many cities, there seems to be one or two most common ethnicities, Toronto is truly a mixed bag. You see people from Asia, Africa, Europe, and Latin America. Toronto's diversity is, in part, a result of Canada's relatively welcoming immigration policy. Immigration in the United States is all based on families. If a close relative is a citizen, you have a good chance of getting in yourself. Canada, though, does it differently. It's all about what you can contribute to the economy and to society. So regardless of your family situation, you can score points in immigration for things like having an advanced degree, speaking English, or having very specific skills. I know a lot of people from my job that had trouble with immigration in the United States, so they went to Toronto instead. And the result is that there are people from all over the world working in downtown Toronto, especially in business and finance. You can't talk about a multi-ethnic city without also talking about great food. And it's all the more interesting in Toronto since there really isn't much of a Canadian cuisine unless you count poutine or Montreal-style bagels. There are great Lebanese restaurants there, which is great if you like shawarma, like I do. There's also great Indian food there, owing to a large Indian population in Toronto. One trend that is taking downtown Toronto by storm is a food hall. Picture a big open space indoors, and there are small restaurants along the outside of the space and lots of tables in the common areas. If you go with friends, you can each pick a different place to order from and still all sit together. One of my favorite food halls in Toronto is called Assembly Chef's Hall. And when I'm there, I go there for lunch a lot. When I do, I'm spoiled for choice. At one place, I had gnocchi with chorizo. Another place has Thai food that I can't pronounce, but is delicious. There's also Korean barbecue and some innovative burgers and a lot of other stuff as well. If you do want some typical Canadian food, you can try poutine. It's French fries covered in gravy and topped with cheese curds. If that's a little heavy for your taste, you can just stop by a Tim Hortons. That's the most famous donut and coffee shop in Canada, and they are everywhere in Toronto. Tim Hortons. There's a lot to do culturally in Toronto, too. The CN Tower is the largest structure in all of North America. It's not technically considered a building since it's not an office tower or apartment building or anything like that, but it's taller than all the other buildings in North America, including in New York, and you can go almost to the top and get sweeping views of the surrounding area. One favorite attraction in Toronto for me is the Hockey Hall of Fame, where you can see one of the 2 copies of the famous Stanley Cup, which is awarded to the best hockey team each year. They also have a great art museum called the Royal Ontario Museum, or the ROM, as they call it. It has a distinctive look, kind of a jagged-looking modern exterior that looks like shards of glass or ice shooting out from a more traditional-looking building. The museum is the largest in Canada, with over 6 million artifacts. You can see everything from famous artwork and historical artifacts to meteorites and even skeletons of dinosaurs. If modern art is more your style, you can check out the Art Gallery of Ontario. Toronto also has some peculiar attractions. If you're looking to take out some frustration, you can try axe throwing. You heard that right. If darts are too tame for you, you can throw an axe at a wooden target. There are also museums dedicated to textiles, shoes, and even the history of televisions. That one has some great examples of all the original television sets from the beginning of the 20th century. If nature is more your thing, then you can always take a stroll in the city's High Park. Accessible by subway, High Park is 400 acres and includes nature trails, sports facilities, a zoo, and educational facilities. Of course, Niagara Falls are a short drive away. A lot of people see the famous waterfalls at Niagara Falls while they visit Toronto. What I really like about Toronto is the energy in the city, the diversity, and the different kinds of food, and of course the things to do at night. Whether that's go to one of Toronto's famous theaters, see live music, visit the distilleries, or drink good local beer. Not in January, of course. There's one quirky thing about the city that you might not know unless you've spent a lot of time there. There's a huge network of underground tunnels that connects the office buildings and the main train station, Union Station. You can walk almost anywhere in downtown without ever going outside. That can be really helpful in the Toronto winters. The office I was working in was connected to the path, as they call these tunnels, and it was nice to be able to walk underground to get lunch or do some shopping at the Eaton Center or Hudson's Bay store. In fact, when I was there, I had about a 10-minute walk from my hotel to the office, and I could walk the entire way, except for the first minute or so, but almost the entire way underground. Hudson's Bay, by the way, is one of the oldest companies in the world. It was started in the year 1670, almost 350 years ago. And for most of its history, it was a fur trading company and controlled a huge portion of what is today northern Canada. Actually, Hudson's Bay Company is older than Canada itself. Today, though, it's a famous department store, and the company has recently acquired famous brands in other countries like Saks Fifth Avenue in the United States, Galeria Kaufhof in Germany, and Vroom and Driesman in the Netherlands. They also own Gilt, a fast fashion online site. I want to say hi to a few people today. First off, Carlos from Mexico wrote to say he listens on Spotify and really wants to go to Canada someday. So I hope this episode was helpful to you, Carlos. Also, Wellington from Brazil. He's an accountant and discovered the podcast just a few days ago and loves it already. He works with people in the United States a lot, Boston, he said. So hopefully listening will help improve your confidence and vocabulary. Great to have you with us, Wellington. Today's phrase is spoiled for choice. That means you have a lot of choices, and it usually refers to when you have more choices than you could possibly need. The fact that there are so many options is itself a luxury. When you're choosing a restaurant in Toronto, you're spoiled for choice. If traditional Canadian food is too plain for you, try some spicy Indian food. Not in the mood for the great Thai restaurants that they have? Well, that's okay. Try some Lebanese shawarma. Too cold for Baja fish tacos? Warm up with some spicy Trinidadian chickpea stew. You're spoiled for choice in Toronto because there are so many great options. If you live in Toronto and you want to travel, you're spoiled for choice too. Pearson Airport flies to 167 cities around the world with direct flights. You can take a 2-hour flight to Moncton, New Brunswick in Canada, or a 14-hour flight to Shanghai, and anything in between. You're spoiled for choice. And if you don't want to go all the way out to Pearson Airport, you can fly out of tiny Billy Bishop Airport right next to downtown. That's if you don't mind those tiny prop planes that Porter Airlines flies. Spoiled for choice. I think you get the idea. The phrase comes from the word spoiled, which is another word you should know. This, well, you might not know this word, but I'm sure you'll recognize the concept. This refers to kids who are given everything they could possibly want from their parents, and they still behave badly. You know the type of parent that always says yes, even when they really should say no to their kids. Their kids are spoiled. They eat junk food whenever they want, no bedtime, no discipline. They get whatever they want. That is a spoiled child, and it's not a compliment, that's for sure. But it is good to be spoiled for choice. I'm usually spoiled for choice when it comes to things to do on a Saturday, but not today when I'm recording this episode. That's because we got a snowstorm here in Chicago, and I don't really want to drive in the snow. And a certain podcast producer took my train pass home with him after he borrowed it last weekend, so I can't take the train, and I'm stuck at home today. But I am spoiled for choice on Netflix, I will say that. That's all for today. I hope you liked today's episode. A little different than normal, but I hope still interesting and helpful to you. Don't forget to sign up for the episode emails by going to plainenglish.com/mail, MAIL, and entering your details there. If you're on the list, then you get a summary of every episode, links to articles I used to prepare the show, and one extra word or phrase from the episode. That's all for you at plainenglish.com/mail, MAIL. We'll be right back here on Thursday with a new episode of Plain English. See you then.